Every time a thunderclap exploded outside, Andy would strike the sewer pipe once, because only this could cover up the loud crashing noise he was making, preventing the guards above from hearing it. This thick pipe was his only route to freedom. After more than a dozen attempts, Andy finally managed to break it open. A surge of filthy water burst out instantly, accompanied by a stench too overwhelming to describe, but he did not hesitate for a second, immediately crawling into the disgustingly foul pipe and moving toward the faint light of freedom. Even with the reeking sludge filling the tunnel, he gritted his teeth and kept going, because to escape this prison, he had already spent nearly 20 years preparing. After crawling out of the sewer, he did not dare waste a single second and sprinted toward the forest. Soon, the next morning arrived. When the guards began roll call, they noticed that the inmate in cell 245 had not come out. Hearing no movement from inside, an enraged guard stormed forward, but when he reached the door, he froze in disbelief, because the cell was completely empty. Meanwhile, the warden was changing his shoes when he suddenly heard the alarm blaring. He immediately sensed something was wrong and rushed to the cell. Then he began furiously scolding his subordinates. He was present at roll call last night, so how could he suddenly vanish? Right after that, he ordered them to bring in the inmate's closest friend, a prisoner named Red. He believed the two were inseparable, and that Andy must have said something to him before escaping.
Also, warden, not a word.
Hearing this, the warden grew even angrier. Since the prison was built, nothing like this had ever happened. In a fit of rage, he grabbed a rock nearby and hurled it at the poster on the wall. A strange hollow echo suddenly rang out. When he stepped closer, he saw that the rock had pierced straight through the poster and punched a small hole in the wall. He instantly realized what it meant, shoved his hand inside, and ripped the poster down. There on the wall was a massive tunnel, leading straight to the outside of the prison. Everyone stood there stunned. When on earth had Andy dug such a passage? Moments later, the guards released the tracking dogs and launched a large-scale search. But after an entire day of searching, all they found was a nearly worn-out rock hammer and a tattered prison uniform. Even now, the guards could hardly believe that with only himself and a tiny hammer, he had carved out such a long tunnel. At first, Andy only wanted to carve his name into the wall, but he accidentally discovered that the cement chipped away surprisingly easily. Being someone who loved studying geology, he immediately grasped the key to the problem. The prison had not been repaired for years, and the cement had severely deteriorated due to weathering. In that instant, he realized it was a gift from heaven. From that day on, whenever he had the chance, he began chipping away at the wall. The poster became the perfect cover. As for the broken cement, he would quietly shake it out from his pant legs while walking in the yard. The hammer was something he had asked Red to obtain for him. This man had been here for 20 years and knew all the angles. Aside from the guard's keys, there was almost nothing he could not get his hands on. But sudden inspections were unavoidable. Andy knew very well that if this secret were discovered, the consequences would be fatal. To avoid suspicion, he pretended to read a book, and when the warden came in with others, he cooperated fully, trying not to show any trace of nervousness. The guards rummaged through everything behind him, even checking the corners of the chairs. Andy could only stand there silently praying that they would not tear down the poster. In the end, after searching for a long time, they found nothing unusual. At that moment, the usually silent warden walked in and took the Bible from Andy's hands.
Any favorite passages?
Watch ye therefore, for ye know not when the master of the house cometh.
Mark 13:35.
Coincidentally, he also enjoyed reading the Bible, so he was quite pleased with Andy's answers. Even though prison rules did not allow posters on the walls, he made a rare exception and did not confiscate it. Before leaving, he returned the Bible and said that the path to salvation was hidden inside it. In truth, the book was hollowed out to hide the hammer, and that hammer was his true path to salvation. Andy was a banker who had been sentenced to 2 life terms for the murder of his wife and her lover, but in reality, he had been wrongfully convicted. That night he had been drunk and only intended to scare them with a gun, but after hesitating for a long time, he never went through with it. He did not want to commit a crime, so he drove away and threw the gun into the river. Yet shockingly, the next day his wife and her lover were found dead, and the weapon was the same type of revolver Andy had owned. Based on that, The judge determined his guilt and sent him to Shawshank Prison. Whenever new inmates arrived, the old prisoners would place bets on who would cry first. At first, Red did not think much of Andy, believing that his thin frame made him an easy target. Others thought the overweight man would be the first to collapse and beg. Watching the old inmates cheer and seeing the hunger in their eyes, Andy could hardly imagine spending the rest of his life here. Once all the newcomers were inside, the warden read out the prison rules. At that moment, one inmate suddenly asked when they would eat. The warden did not answer, instead signaling to the captain of the guards beside him.
You eat when we say you eat. You shit when we say you shit, and you piss when we say you piss. You got that, you maggot dick? On your feet.
I believe in two things: discipline and the Bible. Here you'll receive both. Put your trust in the Lord. Your ass belongs to me.
They were then taken away to wash off the grime from their bodies. After that, they were made to walk naked to their cells. Every newcomer understood deeply that the moment the iron doors closed, their lives no longer belonged to themselves, but to Shawshank Prison. To win the bet, one of Red's companions began aggressively intimidating the overweight man.
I know a couple of big old bull queers that just love to make your acquaintance. Especially that big white mushy butt of yours.
God, I don't belong here.
We have a winner!
I want to go home.
As expected, he could not handle it and broke down crying, shouting that he wanted to go home. The commotion quickly drew the guards. When they arrived, the man became even more hysterical, pleading tearfully to be released. The final outcome was that he was dragged away and severely beaten by the captain. Each blow landed heavily against his head. The surrounding prisoners could not bear to watch and began pleading on his behalf. Their original intention had only been to tease the newcomer, but they never imagined it would escalate this far. Before long, the man lay motionless on the ground. Afterward, the captain ordered him to be taken to the infirmary and warned the others that any more noise would bring the same result. But when they brought him there, the doctor had already gone home, so he lay there until dawn. By the time the doctor arrived in the morning, nothing could be done. The inmate who had intimidated him could not believe it when he heard the news. He never expected that a simple bet would cost someone his life. But in this place, a prisoner's life meant absolutely nothing. Everyone carried on with their routines as usual, and no one would remember him. Soon, trouble also began to find Andy. A homosexual inmate had taken an interest in him. After hearing this, Andy could only turn away in boredom, but the man had no intention of letting him go. One day, as usual, Andy was working in the laundry room when a coworker asked him to fetch some bleach from the storage room. He agreed without hesitation, but just as he was about to grab the supplies, the same homosexual inmate from before suddenly appeared silently behind him. Two others were with him. They were known as the Sisters of Shawshank. Andy immediately sensed something was wrong and quickly grabbed a handful of bleach powder, but just as he was about to make a move, one of them grabbed him tightly from behind. The outcome was predictable. He was no match for the group and could only struggle helplessly as they overpowered him. Thus began 2 long years of humiliation. In the days that followed, the sisters would come after Andy from time to time, leaving him covered in bruises. If this continued, he would not be able to endure it much longer. Until the spring of the 3rd year, when things finally took a turn, the prison roof needed repairs, and they required 10 inmates for the job. The prisoners understood that special assignments meant special treatment. Everyone wanted in, but the spots were limited. However, this was no problem for the experienced Red. He bribed a guard with 10 packs of cigarettes and successfully secured spots for his friends. Of course, Andy was included. Red knew what Andy had been going through and wanted to help him. At least during the repairs, the sisters would not be able to bother him, but this unexpectedly gave Andy a chance to change his fate. While chatting with a colleague, the captain casually mentioned that his brother had left behind a large inheritance after his death, of which $35,000 was meant for him. Yet the government intended to take nearly half of it in taxes, which gave him a terrible headache. As a banker, Andy instantly came up with a bold idea. He walked straight toward the captain, startling the others beside him. The moment he spoke,
You trust your wife?
the captain felt insulted and immediately moved to shove him off the roof.
What did you say?
35,000.
$35,000?
All of it.
All of it?
Every penny.
You better start making sense.
If you want to keep all that money, give it to your wife. The IRS allows a one-time only gift to your spouse for up to $60,000.
Bullshit. Tax-free?
Tax-free.
Then Andy explained that he could handle the paperwork free of charge and save him a significant amount in legal fees, asking only that he buy 3 bottles of cold beer for each of the men. Knowing Andy was an expert in such matters, the captain agreed without hesitation. The others watched nervously, afraid that the captain might lose his temper and end Andy's life. In the end, they truly did get their beer. For them, it was the most luxurious treat imaginable, and it was paid for out of the pocket of the toughest guard in prison history. At that moment, as sunlight poured down on them, they no longer felt like prisoners, but ordinary workers enjoying an afternoon break after a hard day's labor. This was exactly what Andy wanted to see. He hoped they could live like normal people outside, even if only for a few minutes.
Hey, want a cold one, Andy?
No, thanks. Gave up drinking.
Soon, the roof repairs were completed, and they returned to the prison. That day, the long lonely sisters came looking for him again. Faced with their abuse, Andy chose not to remain silent, but to fight back. What he received in return was even more brutal retaliation, and they quickly subdued him.
But you should know that sudden serious brain injury causes the victim to bite down hard. In fact, I hear the bite reflex is so strong, they have to pry the victim's jaws open with a crowbar.
The 3 men hesitated for a moment. They knew the consequences would be severe, but their fear quickly turned into anger. They began kicking and punching Andy until he lost consciousness. This left him in the infirmary for an entire month. The leader of the 3 inmates was placed in solitary confinement for a week because of it, but it was not over yet. When he swaggered back to his cell block, he saw the captain standing there with a fierce expression. He immediately sensed something was wrong, but it was too late to run. What followed was a vicious beating. The captain's brutality was well known, and before long, the man was left permanently incapacitated and transferred to another prison for treatment. From that day on, no one dared to trouble Andy again. All of this had actually been ordered by the warden, because he valued Andy's skills as a banker and saw great use for him in the future. Soon after, Andy was transferred from the laundry room to the library, where he worked alongside an elderly man. The old man had been there for 50 years. The work in the library was simple and easy, just recording the names of those who borrowed books. Because he had successfully helped the captain reduce his tax burden, other guards soon began seeking his assistance as well. To make his life more comfortable in prison, he welcomed everyone and carefully planned strategies for them. In less than a month, he had handled tax matters for nearly half of the guards. For a time, he became a well-known figure within the prison. Even the warden himself was no exception and came to him for help. Because his workload became overwhelming, sometimes even Red was asked to assist him in order to expand the library so everyone could read new books. He applied to the warden for additional funding, but the warden said the prison's finances were tight and there was no extra money to enlarge the library. The only option was to request funds from the state legislature. With the warden's permission, Andy began writing 1 letter per week to the state legislature asking for funding, but every time, his letters disappeared without a reply. Still, he refused to give up, and he kept writing for 6 straight years. Then one day, something strange happened in the library. A prisoner named Brooks suddenly held a knife to a fellow inmate. He had been there for so long and had always been gentle and kind, never acting like this before. It turned out his parole had been approved, and he was about to leave. This should have been good news, but he had lived in the prison for 50 years. He was used to everything there and did not want to leave at all, so he chose this extreme way to try to stay. After Andy patiently persuaded him, he finally put down the knife and accepted reality. The others could not understand why anyone would want to remain in prison. They wished they could leave immediately. Red explained that only here did Brooks feel he belonged. In Shawshank, he was someone important, respected and well known. Outside, he would be nothing, just a frail old man that no one cared about.
But I'm telling you, these walls are funny. First you hate them, then you get used to them. Enough time passes, it gets so you depend on them. That's institutionalized.
I can never get like that.
Oh, yeah?
Say that when you've been here as long as Brooks has.
Soon, the day came for Brooks to leave. He released the crow he had raised with care, setting it free as a symbol of his own departure. Even the guards respected him and shook his hand in farewell. Walking through the busy streets filled with cars and crowds, Brooks looked completely lost. He had been cut off from society for too long, and the outside world felt utterly unfamiliar. 50 years ago, he had only seen one car. Now the streets were full of them. The prison arranged a temporary room for him and a job bagging groceries at a supermarket. Because of his age, Brooks worked slowly and often made mistakes. When customers complained, the manager scolded him openly, showing no regard for his age. Outside, he had no friends and no one to talk to. At night, he often imagined waking up back inside his cell at Shawshank. Only there did he feel a sense of meaning. He even thought about committing a robbery so he could return to prison, but he was too old to endure such turmoil. Not long after, he made a bold decision. He carved his name into the wooden beam of his room with a knife, then chose to hang himself, ending his tragic life. When the inmates heard the news, they could not shake their sorrow for a long time, especially Red, who had already spent nearly 30 years there. Each time he applied for parole, he answered sincerely, saying he had reformed and would never harm society again. Yet every time, he was rejected. One day, the prison received a large shipment of books and $200 in funding from the state legislature. They hoped Andy would stop writing letters. Seeing that 6 years of effort had finally paid off, he decided to start writing 2 letters a week instead. To celebrate, he secretly took a record while a guard was in the restroom and put it on the player. Then he locked the office doors and turned on the prison loudspeakers. This way, every inmate could hear it. The prisoners were confused and stopped to listen. Before, the loudspeakers had only carried the guards' endless lectures, but this time music filled the air. When the warden rushed in, Andy was lying comfortably in his chair, enjoying the music. For a brief moment, the inmates felt alive, able to quietly appreciate something beautiful. Faced with the warden's warning, Andy ignored him and even turned the volume up higher, openly defying him. The next second, the captain smashed the glass and forced the door open from outside. As a result, Andy was sent to solitary confinement for 2 weeks. Fortunately, because he had done so much for the prison, he was spared harsher punishment. Otherwise, another inmate might not have survived such defiance. Finally, one day in 1959, Andy's efforts paid off. The state legislature realized that $200 would not silence him, so they agreed to provide $500 annually for the library. Soon the library expanded, giving everyone a place to read, and it quickly filled with inmates. That same year, the warden launched an outside labor program. The prison's free labor became highly sought after by businessmen, who lined up to pay the warden for access to inmate workers, and Andy became the tool used to clean the money. Each time, he managed the warden's earnings and deposited them into various bank accounts. But clever as he was, Andy devised a plan, exploiting a legal loophole to create a fictional identity. All the bank accounts were registered under that name, yet whenever he wished, Andy could transform that identity into himself and claim every cent. One day in 1965, another group of new inmates arrived. Among them, a man named Tommy stood out. He had been arrested for burglary, and it was not his first time in prison, so he quickly blended in with everyone. That included Andy. Andy asked him to help arrange a high school diploma, so he could find a proper job once he was released. It was this man's arrival that would finally reveal the truth behind the banker's wife murder case. One day, while chatting with Red, he casually asked how Andy had ended up in prison.
Caught his wife in bed with some golf pro. Raised them both.
Hearing this, Tommy suddenly remembered something. 4 years earlier, while serving time in another prison, he had gotten a new cellmate one day. The man specialized in home burglaries and loved bragging about the crimes he had committed. One recent case he boasted about involved a golf instructor. He had broken into the man's house and found him with a woman, and in a fit of rage, he killed them both. Only later did he learn that the woman had a husband, who was a major banker, and that banker was the very Andy standing before him. The moment Andy heard this, everything became clear. He truly had been wrongfully convicted. He immediately went to the warden, hoping the case could be reopened and justice restored. But to keep his personal moneymaker, The warden dismissed it as nothing more than a lie Tommy made to please him.
Sir, if I were to ever get out, I would never mention what goes on in here. I'd be just as indictable as you for laundering that money.
Such a sensitive matter instantly angered the warden. He ordered Andy removed at once and placed him in solitary confinement for a month. Then he had Tommy brought in. Tommy had no idea he was walking into a trap. At first, the warden treated him politely and even handed him a cigarette, simply to confirm whether the story about Andy was true.
Absolutely.
Would you be willing to swear before a judge and jury, having placed your hand on the good book and taken an oath before Almighty God himself?
Just give me that chance.
After hearing his answer, the warden felt reassured. He crushed the cigarette under his shoe and signaled to the captain above. The outcome was predictable. Tommy was silenced without mercy. The explanation had already been prepared. He had attempted to escape, and when guards tried to stop him, he resisted, leaving them no choice but to open fire. Afterward, the warden visited Andy in solitary confinement and asked him to return to work. When Andy refused, the warden began to threaten him. He said he could shut down the library and deny everyone access to books, or place Andy back with the predatory inmates and withdraw guard protection. With no choice, Andy appeared to compromise, but inside, a bold plan had already formed. Later, he said goodbye to Red and spoke of his dream. He wanted to go to a small town called Zewadaneo by the Pacific Ocean. There, he planned to buy an old fishing boat, fix it up, and open a small restaurant to spend the rest of his life. After sharing all this, he asked Red for one favor. If one day he was released, he should go to a place called Buxton, where there was a hayfield with a tall oak tree at the north end. Beside the tree stood a stone wall, and within it lay a piece of black volcanic rock.
There's something buried under it I want you to have.
Red was shocked and could not understand why Andy was saying such strange things, assuming he had simply been shaken by recent events. One day, as usual, Andy was handling the warden's finances, and while the warden opened the safe, he quietly switched the documents in his hands. The warden suspected nothing and allowed him to place the false papers inside. Before leaving, the warden even reminded him to polish his shoes properly, but after polishing them, Andy put them on himself. Red noticed his distant expression and felt uneasy. After lights out, Andy removed his prison uniform, revealing the suit he had taken from the warden. After 20 years of effort, his tunnel was finally complete, and tonight was the night. Under the cover of darkness, he successfully escaped. The next day, he withdrew all the warden's money from the banks and purchased a car to travel elsewhere. When the warden opened the safe again, all he found was the Bible. Flipping to the back, he saw the hollowed-out space. By then, it was already too late. Andy had mailed evidence of the warden's financial crimes and violent acts to the newspapers. Soon, federal agents arrived. The captain, being involved as well, could not escape legal consequences. The warden knew that once imprisoned, he would either face execution or suffer at the hands of other inmates. Rather than live in humiliation, he chose to end his own life, even to his last breath. He could not understand how Andy had brought him down. Though Andy had left, his story continued to circulate within the prison. Everyone admired him, this seemingly fragile man who had achieved something extraordinary. After the warden's death, life inside improved greatly. Red finally faced his third parole hearing. After 40 years behind bars, the board at last approved his release. Like Brooks years before, he put on a clean suit and walked out through the prison gates. He too looked lost on the road back to society. He was assigned the same room Brooks once had and the same grocery job. Clearly, he struggled to adjust to life outside.
40 years I've been asking permission to piss. I can't squeeze a drop without say-so. All I do anymore is think of ways to break my parole. So maybe they'd send me back.
He even considered ending his life as Brooks had, but he still held onto the promise he had made to Andy, so he went to the place Andy had described. After crossing hills and fields, he found the tall oak tree. Following the stone wall, he spotted the black volcanic rock. When he lifted it, something was hidden beneath, a dusty metal box. After making sure no one was around, Red opened it, finding a letter and a stack of cash. In the letter, Andy wrote that he had prepared a chessboard in Zewadaneo and was simply waiting for Red to join him.
Hope is a good thing. maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. I will be hoping that this letter finds you, and finds you well. Your friend, Andy.
Get busy living, or get busy dying. That's goddamn right. I hope I can make it across the border.